All right. You know, one of the most overlooked tools in a small business and something that every small business should have isn't a new fancy app or a new piece of equipment. It's a handbook or an employee manual like this. When most people hear employee handbook, they think of some stiff corporate binder filled with legal jargon, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that sets the foundation for your company up front, sets the rules and the tones for what your employees are going to be expecting from you as a business owner and what you're going to be expecting from your employees as a business owner. Every small business needs one. Usually, most small businesses start with just a few people, or maybe even just yourself, like I did. I did have a business partner in the very beginning. We split amicably, but before all that, it was just me and a pickup truck and some tools that I had, and we've grown it into a pretty medium-sized handyman business. You don't need a handbook because everyone can walk over and ask what to do. But as you start to grow, communication becomes harder. People make assumptions, expectations get blurry, and the culture starts to shift, sometimes in the wrong direction. And the handbook can help make sure that you guide everyone in the right direction along the way. Handbooks are powerful. It takes what's in your head and the way you want things to be done and your values and your standards, and it puts it on paper in a way that your team can follow along. At our company, everybody who goes through an orientation, which we'll make a video about orientation paperwork and how to do an orientation later, but everybody reads this manual from cover to cover basically, and then they sign a signature page in the back saying that they understand what's in the manual and what's expected of them and what's expected of you. It's just as important for an employee that comes to work for you to know that you're going to give them what they are expecting as it is that you're going to get from your employee what you're expecting from them. It does definitely work both ways, and this clarifies that for you so that everybody can be on the same page from the very first day. So, what are some keys to a good handbook? First, clarity. It needs to be written in plain, understandable language, not legalese, so that the people can actually read it and want to read it and understand what it all means. Second, alignment. Every policy and procedure in your handbook needs to align with your business and what your values are as a business. Third, authenticity. Your handbook should sound like you. It should be like you. Don't download some standardized handbook template and just put your business name on it. Now, if you stick around to the end of this, we will talk about where you can get this handbook that my wife and I wrote ourselves, basically. We did send it to an attorney to have them go through it and make sure that nothing was illegal that we wrote or any of our ideas. They did make some small tweaks and changes, but nothing with like legal jargon or anything like that. The authenticity of our company and who we are still comes through in this manual, and it's exactly what we want our people to know from the very first day that they start working for us. So the next question would be, when do you want to create a handbook? As you go along, I just had a long conversation with a guy that I've been friends with for a long time, and we're in Virginia, and he worked for VDOT for many years, and he finally went out on his own and started his own contracting business doing excavation and grading work. And we were talking, and I made a comment to him that I had all this paperwork already and that I could get it for him if he was interested in having it. And he said that him and his wife had already started like a lessons learned logbook, and they were using that as a way to know what procedures and what policies they needed to have in their handbook. And a lot of this comes directly from that. We're going to go through our entire orientation package through a series of videos, and each one of them I'll be able to cite to you a specific example of why we have this rule and why we have this piece of paper so that you can understand the complexities of owning a small business never stop. And it's like that for everyone. So don't think that you're the only person in your shoes and you're the only person that doesn't know what to do or not sure how to get a handbook or where to get started. That's where everybody is when they're starting their business. I'm just trying to make it easier for you. And like I said, we'll have this one downloadable for you. At the end of the day, an employee handbook is not just paperwork, it's a leadership tool. It protects your business, it empowers your people, and it keeps your culture consistent so you can grow. Culture doesn't just happen, it's built, it's intentional, and one of the most practical, effective ways to build that culture is about putting your values and expectations into a handbook and going over that handbook with each employee. Anytime you make a modification to your handbook, you should go over those modifications as well. We have monthly meetings with all of our employees the first Tuesday of every month, and anything that changes or any expectations that aren't being met, we go over them in those meetings. So if you haven't completed a employee handbook yet, start. Even a simple one, it'll save you headaches, protect your reputation, and make your company a better place to work. Our handbook, just to go over it briefly, Brian, that's here with me, probably might have some questions too, because
Yeah, so don't jump into it too quick because I've got some questions that you're going to take away from me.
okay.
So, question number one, in real world, what problems did you start running into where you were like, yeah, I got to put something in writing?
So the earliest problems would have been time tracking, vacation tracking, holidays that we have that are paid off. Because I probably went 7 years in business without a handbook and just kind of winging it and just telling people, hey, I told you 7 months ago that we're only closed on Thanksgiving and Black Friday. We're not closed the day before or the day after Black Friday. So then I said, well, we got to put something in writing. We got to have it written down so these people can take this home with them and keep it, and they can reference it and know, or I can at least say, look, this is where you signed right here. These are your 5 paid days off, and those are the only days you get.
So is that scenario what made you realize you needed a handbook, or was there something specific that happened where you're like, I got to get this in writing. We got to get this figured out?
Yeah, so specifically speaking, I would say it was more my wife, who's my business partner, getting tired of hearing me complain because I got asked the same questions over and over and over again. In regards to, like I said, payday, the most important thing to an employee: what day they get paid, how much they get paid, and how they get paid. And we pay on Fridays and we pay weekly. And the way that we pay our guys is by using GPS. We used to use a paperwork method, but it never really worked. So we switched to GPS years ago, and they get paid on GPS. So being able to have that in writing for them to know and understand doesn't eliminate all the headaches, because some people still ask the questions, but it definitely helps eliminate a lot of those questions.
When you first started out, obviously a handbook wasn't on your mind. You just said, I think you went 7 years without one.
Yeah.
In hindsight, for somebody that's starting their own business and they're looking to hire their first employee, at what point
Should I have?
Yeah,
like looking backwards, if I could go backwards.
Yeah, if I'm getting ready to start a service-based business and you and I are having coffee somewhere and we're having a conversation, and the topic of a handbook comes up, what's your advice to me when I need to create one?
Today. Start it today, even if it's a 1 or 2 page or 3 page document where you just write down what your goals and objectives and what your core values are going to be for your business.
All right.
Yeah, I regret not having one before we had one, because it could have saved a lot of headaches and arguments along the way with employees.
So you mentioned that it's not just a list of rules; it also defines the culture of the company.
Yes.
So in a service-based business, specifically, handyman and contracting, how does that play out with the field crews and on actual job site?
So we set in here like the policy standards. Like my business in particular is designed for property management and for maintenance on group homes for adults with disabilities. And it sets a standard for who we actually work for, who we talk to, and who we listen to on the job. It also sets the expectation for if it's an estimated job and the estimate says do A, B, C, and D, you don't do E because the person at the house asked you to do it just because you're there, because we don't get paid for just doing things. So it sets that expectation, as well as it sets the boundaries for what the employee is allowed to do, including like we have credit cards and what they're allowed to purchase and what they're not allowed to purchase, how much they're allowed to purchase. We have take-home vehicles, what they're allowed to do with those vehicles, where they're allowed to use those vehicles, when they're allowed to use those vehicles, all those types of things.
For a company that's been running for a while, take you for example, 7 years, and they stumble across this video and they're like, I don't have a company handbook. How difficult is it for somebody that's been doing it for so long to create one? And in addition to that, what are the issues with the employees adopting that versus somebody starting out writing one before their first employee?
All right. Obviously, if you could write one before your first employee, it would be best, because then your first employee would be bought in, signed on the dotted line. But ultimately, you are the employer and the employee is the employee. So if you want to implement a new handbook and you want to implement new policies and procedures, you're well within your right to do that. And basically, they can either get on board or get out. That's how I would deal with it. Most people are going to get on board, especially if you try to make them understand this is for both of us. Because it really is, like I said in my opening monologue, it really is for both the employee and the employer. Because employees freak out, man. Like, we pay on Fridays, but apparently mine never does. But some people who have like not a bank, but they use a card, like a Visa bank card, or I think there's one called Green Dot or something like that. They get their money on Thursdays instead of Fridays. Sometimes. But sometimes they get it on Fridays. And if they got it on Thursday 3 weeks in a row, Thursday they're calling the office saying, hey, I didn't get paid today. Well, you don't get paid till Friday. Well, I usually get it on Thursdays. Well, if you don't have it by tomorrow at the end of the day, call me and we'll work it out.
Right.
Of course, they always get it, but people freak out. People that have worked for me for years will call and be like, hey, my check didn't go in this morning. And I'm like, what? It's Thursday. You don't get paid till Friday. Have you ever not gotten paid? So having the expectation set for the employee and the employer, and because employers have responsibilities that they owe to their employees. And this kind of bridges that gap. So the employee knows what to expect and how to expect it, as well as the employer setting the expectation for what to expect from the employee.
So obviously you touched on the two big issues that a handbook can help with, which is, compensation and when they're going to get the compensation, as well as time off.
Yes.
But outside of those two things, how has implementing a handbook helped the business run more smooth?
All right. So we would say to people, hey, we don't wear shorts. We don't wear open-toed shoes. We don't wear hey dudes. We don't wear slip-ons. We expect jeans or cargo work pants. We expect an employee to wear a company shirt or a company sweatshirt every day. And we allow tennis shoes now, but we expect closed-toe tennis shoes or work boots. And before the handbook, people would constantly say, well, I didn't know. Even if you told the same person 10 times, they could say, I didn't know. You put it in writing and you sit down with them and you literally read the whole handbook with them and then they sign it. Then you have the ability to go back to it and say, look, we don't wear shorts. We wear a company shirt and we wear jeans every day. That's what we wear. That's what you're going to wear, or you're not going to work here, because it sets the standard and the tone for the company out in the field.
Right.
Because people don't know, we don't do a lot of private work, but we do some. But if you walk up, you got on a complete contracting shirt and a hat, and you're driving a truck that's lettered that says complete contracting on it, the person's pretty confident you're the person that's supposed to be there.
Right.
If you walk up in hey dudes and one basketball shorts and just a black nameless hoodie, they have no clue who's walking up to their door and knocking and ringing their doorbell, especially now that so many people have camera systems and they're watching every move at their house all of the time. It helps the companies culture and the outward look towards the customer.
So the brand recognition and the professionalism.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So you had picked up the handbook to start talking about it a little bit, but before we get into that, what kind of values for a trade company that's creating a handbook? What are the values that should be front and center, cannot live without?
Well, that's going to be different for everybody. You know, there's some core values that you need. You need reliability. You need punctuality. You need clarity, and you need honesty. If you have those four things, like, so I've talked about it before, but like my business is a construction business, a handyman style business, but really we're a customer service business, because our customers, especially our repeat customers, they expect a level of professionalism, punctuality, and timeliness to what we do, and the ability to communicate with them and say what we're going to do and do what we say we're going to do is more important than the work. So if you're going to own this type of business and you're going to run this type of business, the most important thing you can do is show up when you say you're going to show up, do what you say you're going to do, and do it for the price you said you were going to do it for. Nobody likes working with a contractor of any type or service-based business that doesn't show up when they say they're going to, doesn't do what they say they're going to do, or constantly adds charges to jobs when it was their job to figure out what something was going to cost from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's very, very great advice.
That's probably we could probably make a whole nother video.
Sure, I was just thinking
just about that.
Yeah.
But back to this.
Yeah, so let's dive into that.
Basically, you're going to want some type of introduction. Talks about what you do when you make changes to the policy, what the employee's relationship is to the company. Section 2, definitions of employee status. Define what an employee is. Talk about probationary periods for new employees, whatever you have. Employment policies, which is going to be a whole list of things that we're going to go over when we do our orientation. Standards of conduct, wages and salary policies, benefits and services, employee communications, and then the last thing is going to be whether or not the person wants to sign on for this or not. So this right here is literally 2 pages, and then in the back they have, legitimately we have, for people to be able to say they don't agree and they don't want to be an employee, or they do agree and they do want to be an employee. And believe it or not, we've gone through orientation with people and they said, this just isn't for me. I don't want to work somewhere where I have to wear jeans and I have to wear tennis shoes, or where I have to communicate if I'm not going to be at work. It's wild how many people think they can just do whatever they want whenever they want to do it. So setting the expectation up front saves you the time and the headache. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I'll gladly answer them in the best way that I can. And that's another video brought to you by Beyond the Estimates. And this will be in the description below, downloadable. We're going to eliminate all the complete contract and stuff off of it and put your name here so that you can use it, but it will be downloadable. Read it over, check it out, make changes, but make a handbook. We'll see you next time.